Meet Rachel, a 30-year-old woman with an impressive net worth of $500,000. While her peers in their 20s grappled with the high costs of living alone, paying exorbitant rents in trendy apartments, Rachel took a different route. She chose to live at home with her parents after college, an option that many dismissed as not grown-up enough. Yet Rachel saw it as a strategic move, a way to save money and build a nest egg for her future. Rachel watched as her friends struggled. Some moved into cramped apartments that consumed their paychecks, forcing them to live paycheck to paycheck. Others faced not only the burden of rent, but also the rising costs of utilities, groceries, and transportation. They complained about the high-stakes game of adulting and the pressures of being financially independent. Many even fell into debt, which only served to add to their stress and dissatisfaction. In contrast, Rachel felt secure living at home. It was a practical decision built on logic. Her parents had always been there for her, and she wanted to support them in return. Over the years, she took on part-time jobs while in school, holding down multiple roles to keep up with her studies and her family's expectations. Rachel often assumed the role of the caregiver. As her parents faced financial difficulties due to job losses and medical expenses, Rachel stepped in as their financial support. "I can handle it," she would tell herself. "I can make it work, it's just for a little while." But as months turned into years, Rachel found herself entrenched in a complex web of familial duty and expectation. The financial lifeline she threw to her parents had become a rope that tied her down. Little did she know that her generosity was breeding dependency rather than gratitude. Rachel was, after all, the prodigal child who had returned home, successful in many aspects, but beholden to her family's financial struggles. She was proud of her accumulated wealth. It was the result of hard work and strategy. Yet, despite this wealth, her parents were growing increasingly comfortable with the status quo. They expected her to keep stepping in and filling the gaps, often without acknowledgement. As Christmas approached that year, her excitement grew. It was a time for memories, for home-cooked meals, laughter, and celebrating traditions that connected them all. Rachel could already smell her mother's famous rosemary garlic turkey filling the house with warmth and nostalgia. She envisioned the family's laughter, the games they would play, and the stories they would tell by the fireplace. It was a time for families to come together, forget their worries, and celebrate one another. But on a seemingly ordinary day, everything changed. A simple text shattered her warm expectations. It was from her brother. "Hey, Rachel," he wrote, "Mom and Dad said they can't invite you to Christmas this year. They want a refined adult atmosphere." Rachel's heart sank. Disinvited from a family holiday after years of sacrifices, the hurt and disbelief hit her like a tidal wave. Memories flashed through her mind. The times she had covered their bills, donated her savings to pay off debts, and even financed their living expenses during rough patches. Mom and Dad wouldn't do this, she thought, trying to rationalize the unexpected message. They couldn't possibly exclude her after everything she had done to support the family. But as she read and reread the message, the reality began to sink in. They were willing to put her financial help aside when it came to their social image. The disinvitation spoke volumes about their expectations, their values, and the dynamics of their family. How could they treat her with such disregard? The betrayal pierced through her heart. Suddenly, all the sacrifices she had made felt insignificant, trumped by a rejection that cut deeper than any financial transaction. The very notion of family that she had cherished was crumbling. As feelings of anger and sadness surged, Rachel felt a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. How could they do this to me? She wondered. This disinvitation felt like a punch to her gut. It forced her to confront the complexities of her relationship with her family, particularly her parents, who seemed to value appearances over genuine connections. Tears of frustration began to flow freely down Rachel's cheeks as she sat on her bed, struggling to comprehend her family's actions. She felt the ground beneath her shift, realizing that she was something of a pawn in their game. This was not merely about missing a holiday dinner. It was about her entire identity being challenged. No longer was she the beloved daughter or the supportive sibling. She now felt like an outsider. What could she have done differently? Was her support not enough? The thoughts rattled endlessly in her mind. She watched as her parents refined their lives, often at her expense, and dismissed her with such ease. As she reflected, the invitation that she had assumed was a given turned into a symbol of her family's selfishness. But rather than succumb to despair, Rachel felt a surge of determination begin to build within her. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and opened her laptop. It was time to take control. Rachel's first action involved calculating the total financial support she had provided to her parents over the years. This wasn't merely a list of numbers. It represented love, loyalty, and sacrifice. She scrolled through her bank statements, taking note of every little contribution: grocery bills, mortgage payments, unexpected medical expenses, and holiday gifts that helped them stay afloat. She had written check after check, forfeiting her own savings and opportunities to finance their lifestyles. The realization weighed heavily on her. The very notion that helping the ones she loved had turned into a chain that tied her down felt disheartening. It wasn't just money. It was the emotional labor that accompanied such sacrifices. For every dollar she contributed, a part of her heart felt like it was lost. "The disrespect is unbearable," Rachel muttered to herself. "I can't believe I kept putting them first, only to be pushed aside when it counts." Moments turned into hours as she processed the truth, and the fortitude to act emerged. Steeling her nerves, she began to chart out her plan, seeking to regain not just her financial independence but her emotional peace. Rachel's plan had to be subtle yet impactful. She decided that her first course of action would be to cut off the automatic payments she had set up over the years. She could no longer support her family financially, especially given the coldness they had shown her. This was not an impulsive choice. It was strategic, meant to reclaim her sense of self-worth. After an intense week of preparation, Rachel finally took the plunge. Sitting at her laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard, she felt a cocktail of anxiety and exhilaration. She was ready to sever ties, to step boldly into a new chapter where dependence wouldn't define her. With a resolve that now felt almost liberating, Rachel clicked through to her online banking portal. The first automatic payment she targeted was the mortgage. Canceling it felt monumental, not just because of the money involved, but because it represented a statement about her role in the family. With one decisive click of the mouse, Rachel effectively told her family that their dependence on her would no longer be tolerated. What happened next was a whirlwind of mixed emotions. The next few days were filled with anticipation that bubbled just beneath her skin. Was she being selfish? The thoughts crept in, but Rachel quickly pushed them aside. This was about protection, protection from being taken advantage of by the very people she had assumed would always have her back. "Things need to change, and this has to be the wake-up call," she whispered to herself. But Rachel's actions had consequences that she had not fully anticipated. Her parents discovered the financial cutoff quicker than she expected. They began to feel the pressure in an urgent way. Bills started appearing in the mail, and her father was suddenly much more vocal. "Rachel, you need to understand the real world out there. Do you think we're just going to be okay?" he exclaimed during a family dinner where tension replaced the usual laughter. Rachel felt herself clench her fists, holding back the urge to respond in anger. Always the dutiful daughter, she had swallowed her true feelings for far too long. "I'm not your safety net anymore," Rachel considered saying, but remained silent instead. Her father's agitation grew, and Rachel knew he was feeling the reality of their circumstance without her financial assistance for the first time in years. Days turned into a hasty blend of tension and anxiety, with Rachel's actions resulting in a cycle of panic. Her parents, once comfortable lives, were slowly morphing into chaos, and that chaos began to unleash its fury towards her. With Rachel withdrawing financial support, emotions in her home ran high. The phone calls lamenting their hardship began pouring in. Her parents sounded desperate. The financial burden loomed larger than ever, and Rachel was bearing the brunt of their frustrations. "Rachel, how could you do this to us?" her mother yelled over the phone one evening, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and genuine fear. "We can't make ends meet without your support." Rachel felt a mixture of guilt and determination. "Mom, all I ever wanted was to feel like part of this family. You've made me feel like a cash cow, and I can't do it anymore." Her mother's response was a barrage of hurtful words, depicting Rachel as selfish, cold, and ungrateful. Those accusations hit Rachel harder than any financial slap could. It felt like a betrayal of their upbringing, rather than a conversation centered around family loyalty. "Don't you understand? You're throwing everything away," said her mother, and Rachel's heart twisted painfully at her words. "We have always supported you. Now that we need you, you're just walking away." The guilt was potent, almost paralyzing. But as Rachel reflected, she understood her decision stemmed from a need for boundaries that had long been neglected. This was about more than money, it was about respect. Days later, her parents escalated their reaction. They began contacting neighbors and family friends, spinning a narrative scattered with half-truths and outright falsehoods. It soon became an emotional campaign that left Rachel both angry and uncertain about her choices. "How can you expel your child in her time of need?" they exclaimed in public forums, playing the victim while dismissing Rachel's sacrifices. As words traveled, Rachel felt the sting of betrayal. She had never imagined her parents would resort to speaking poorly of her, but as they spoke of her presumed selfishness, it was becoming clearer. Rachel was painted as the villain in a family drama that should have been private. Rachel knew that she must prepare for the counterattack that was surely coming. She understood that her parents were uneasy about her bold actions, and now they were attempting to regain control by undermining her publicly. She realized the importance of gathering her evidence, weapons she would use in her defense. She began collecting everything: bank statements, receipts, and social media posts, all documenting her financial contributions to the family over the years. Every single financial gesture she made was suddenly part of a bigger narrative. At that moment, Rachel was not just collecting numbers. She was gathering the pieces of her identity that had been held captive by her parents for too long. This wasn't simply about proving their exploitation. It was about reclaiming her power. Each detail she collected served as a reminder. It wasn't just about the money. It was about love turned sour, connections strained under the weight of dependency, and the emotional cost that had gone unnoticed for far too long. She found a deep-seated empowerment in her quest for the truth and decided to confront her family in the most public way possible, at their family holiday dinner. The family dinner was a time meant for joy, yet Rachel saw it as an opportunity for confrontation. She knew that confronting them in front of relatives and family friends would compel them to face the harsh truths they had been avoiding. As the holiday approached, she prepared herself. She churned the evidence in her mind, wrapping it around the emotional tempest she felt brewing within. No longer would she sit by and watch as her family painted her as nothing more than a financial burden. On the day of the dinner, Rachel arrived with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The table was set, and the aroma of her mother's cooking filled the air, yet she felt a heavy weight on her chest. Glimpses of her family filled her with conflicting emotions. Could they really not see the reality of what they had done? She sat quietly during appetizers, her mind racing through her planned confrontation. Finally, as the turkey was served, Rachel knew the moment had come. She stood up, heart hammering in her chest. "Before we eat," she announced, her voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety, "I need to address something important." The room fell silent as every eye turned to her, some with growing concern, others with knowing disdain. "I appreciate everything I've done for this family, but it's time to speak the truth," Rachel continued, presenting her collected evidence as she spoke. "For years, I've supported you financially, but I will no longer be a safety net." As she laid out the documents, glances shifted rapidly. Relatives exchanged looks, puzzled yet intrigued. Her parents' faces turned from surprise to outrage. "This is not how family behaves. You dare to expose us," her mother cried, her voice trembling with indignation. "No one is trying to expose. I'm unveiling the truth," Rachel shot back, fully prepared for the battle ahead. Tension pulsed in the air. as Rachel's resolve finally broke through the emotional walls they had erected for so long. In the ensuing conversation, Rachel faced her parents with unwavering determination. She explained how their reliance on her had poisoned their relationships, creating an imbalance that heavily favored dependency over love. "You've turned me into your financial crutch while dismissing my contributions as if they were mere handouts," Rachel stated calmly, her voice firm. "You raise your heads high in front of community members, yet fail to acknowledge the very daughter who held you up when times were tough." Their anger transformed into denial. Her father leapt to the defense, claiming that Rachel was simply ungrateful. "You forgot your roots, Rachel. You claim to care about family, but how can you throw this all away?" But Rachel pressed on, presenting her evidence one piece at a time, highlighting each instance of her support. She matched their accusations with facts until the weight of her statements hung in the air, thick like smoke. Her parents' defenses crumbled. They grew increasingly uncomfortable, and Rachel leaned into the discomfort. She wouldn't back down, she had found her voice, and she was determined to use it to advocate for herself. "I've paid for holidays, treatments, and daily expenses. Is that how you repay me?" Rachel pointedly asked, her heart racing, but her conviction never wavered. "It's not just money, it's about respect." As hesitations and rebuttals flooded in, Rachel remained composed, leading everyone to the undeniable conclusion that they could no longer dismiss the reality of their financial interdependence. It was a moment of reckoning, a move towards honesty that unlocked layers of emotions they had all buried for far too long. In the aftermath of her confrontation, the emotional fallout drained the energy from the room. Her family sat in palpable silence. The fear, anger, and shock that had previously populated the air began to settle into an unsettling realization. They had become complicit in a cycle that sought to uphold appearances over authenticity. Over the next few weeks, Rachel focused on rebuilding and forgiving, but the road was rocky. Her parents faced a harsh reality without her financial support, but Rachel refused to allow guilt to sway her purpose. Instead, she offered guidance as they navigated this newfound path. She emphasized the necessity of independence, urging them to seek counseling for their financial habits and to devise plans that didn't lean on her. It was a painful journey as they grappled with their own sense of agency, but slowly, change began to take root. At times, the discussions became heated, and harsh words lingered. In moments of vulnerability, her mother would slip back into accusations of betrayal, but Rachel steadfastly reminded her that she needed to break the pattern. "It's not about what I owe you," Rachel would say. "It's about the mutual respect we need to rebuild. You've been raised to depend on me, and I'm saying no." Eventually, her parents began acknowledging that they had allowed dependency to erode the family bonds. With professional guidance and Rachel's support, they found ways to reestablish their financial footing. Slowly, they regained control over their lives, and as they did, Rachel felt the burdens on her shoulders lift. She saw her parents embracing self-sufficiency and working through their aging dilemmas rather than expecting their daughter to fight their battles. Months turned into years. Rachel learned to navigate the waters of emotional independence while her parents adapted to a lifestyle that didn't revolve around her. The rebirth of family dynamics took time, yet it offered them all the freedom to engage authentically. The first Thanksgiving that Rachel spent at home post-confrontation was a beautiful rancor of laughter, maturity, and genuine familial love. The previously tense atmosphere melted into warmth as her parents sat across the table from her, sharing a meal without veiled frustrations. "I'm proud of us," Rachel said, looking at them with conviction. "I never thought we could get to this place." As they shared stories, reminisced over memories, and created new traditions, Rachel felt a profound shift. Instead of bondages that dictated her existence, the relationship became interwoven with respect and understanding. The lessons learned echoed in each of their discussions, guiding the family toward healthier habits now and for generations to come. Rachel watched as her parents learned to take pride in their ability to support themselves, and it was clear to her that mutual respect had been restored. the journey toward balance was not without challenges. Rachel sometimes found herself slipping back into old patterns, a reminder of the dependence that had existed for years, but she refused to let guilt compromise her newfound independence. The liberation she felt was palpable. Rachel had chosen to take a stand, not just for herself, but for the entire family. As she sat down to pen her thoughts that year, Rachel captured the lessons she had learned and the grace that discovery and confrontation had brought her family. In time, Rachel realized that standing firm in her beliefs and showing her family that love didn't come with a price made all the difference. She felt liberated and empowered, not just to secure her financial independence, but also to engage in a healthier relationship with those who meant the most to her. What had begun as a painful confrontation transformed into a profound journey of growth. The experience illustrated an invaluable lesson. Respect is indeed more valuable than money, and navigating familial relationships while affirming one's self-worth is essential to personal growth. The shared sense of understanding became the foundation for the family's future, freeing them from the shackles of their past. Rachel's realization of love without strings became the crucible for her personal independence, allowing her to thrive. Life post-recovery signified a brighter future, and Rachel embraced that future with open arms. It wasn't just about money. It was about the love they shared, the independence they fought for, and the memories yet to be made. The laughter that graced their family dinners now held a new depth, an acknowledgement that boundaries, when drawn with care, are ultimately rooted in love. Rachel had redefined what it meant to be a family, not through financial dependency, but through mutual respect and understanding. As she reflected on the transformative journey she'd undertaken, Rachel understood that the strongest bonds are those forged in truth. They required transparency, vulnerability, and the ability to navigate through challenges without losing the essence of love. In closing, Rachel recognized that family is not merely defined by blood, but by the respect and understanding that flourishes between individuals. And in life, the most precious gifts often come from forging a path toward independence and embracing the complexity of human relationships. As Rachel moved forward, she found a profound sense of gratitude for the journey she had taken. It wasn't just about overcoming one family hurdle. It marked the beginning of a new narrative that welcomed challenges as opportunities for growth. The lessons imparted were not exclusive to her family alone. They echoed in her friendships, her career, and her understanding of herself. Rachel knew that by standing up for her self-worth, she cultivated resilience that only strengthened her character. With each passing day, she learned to navigate adulthood with confidence, realizing that love should never be transactional, but rather filled with mutual respect and understanding. In her heart, Rachel knew that the journey of reclamation she had undertaken had not only saved her identity, but allowed her the space to grow and thrive. This retelling of Rachel's experience serves as a powerful reminder that every family has its complexities, but the journey toward understanding and mutual respect is one worth taking.